The Waterproofing the East was a project that was developed about 9 years ago. The main reason that council decided to embark upon such a large regional project related to water security. At the time, South Australia was going through extreme droughts and SA Water put water restrictions upon many of its users.
The councils allowed their parks, gardens and reserves to brown. We weren't watering them. This project is going to ensure that that doesn't happen.
This is the fourth one of these projects that WGA and Guida O'Connor have been involved in the last 10 years. Guida O'Connor's involvement has focused on the mechanical and electrical requirements of the project. It involves the pump stations, the UV, the tanks at the back, the buildings and the injection bores that we have developed around the local councils.
So we actually extract water after a storm event from 3rd and 4th creeks and pump it up into the wetlands that you can see behind me. Or it can go into our biofilters. Coming out of the treatment system, we then pump it down to a storage tank at Hamilton Reserve. From that site, the water is disinfected. We then inject it into the ground, some 110 metres below the ground, at a reasonably high pressure, which could vary between 40 metres below the ground and 40 metres above the ground is the pressure that we have. However, it is important to recognise that the pressure actually builds up above ground level and we have artesian conditions. A technical challenge of the project is to work out what impact that will have on other people around us. So that's the injection and the storage. We then extract it out of the ground and then distribute it throughout the region.
The councils were particularly interested in the water security issue to ensure also that the demands on the River Murray were going to be reduced and mitigated. There were 7 councils involved. It had never been done before.
It's a fairly large regional area that we're delivering this to. We've got over 40 kilometres of pipe network. The pipeline itself was put in through directional drilling because it's a built-up area with built-up roads and plenty of people are around.
Over the years, the 7 councils went down to 3. We came together and we formed a subsidiary and we've named ourselves Era Water.
Traditionally, if you go back to the USHOS study in 2008-2009, it was effectively saying that the eastern suburbs of Adelaide could not have a stormwater harvesting scheme of any scale. The criteria to be judged at that particular period was 200 meg per annum. Now this scheme is actually looking to harvest over 500 meg per annum.
There are no engineering standards governing how to inject water into aquifers. During the last 10 years, we've worked on the control systems that allow pumps to operate 100 metres below the ground in both negative pressure and positive pressure. This is way outside the normal operation of a pump curve. The controls we've developed have allowed us to operate the pumps over the varying pressures that we find in the bores.
This is a fractured rock aquifer, and for many years most people have said that you can't do a large-scale harvesting scheme in fractured rock aquifer. We actually have multiple parts of our scheme all over the region, which makes it an interesting challenge for transfer technically. Aquifer storage and recovery, along with stormwater harvesting, each component in itself is not unique, however putting it all together is unique. There's no textbooks on what we're doing. We're taking water out of stormwater drains which have significant pollutant loads. Those pollutant loads are taken out through our wetlands and our biofilters, so we are actually reducing the pollutants that end up in our river torrents, which in the end end up out at sea. In addition, we're creating habitats and biodiversity, which you can see around you now. We're also irrigating parks and reserves, so that's improving the environment for the residents around them.
Public amenity to the community is quite impressive. We're offering passive recreation. It's a beautiful location for families and friends. We're going to ensure that the gardens and the public realm will always be green.
There's some studies going on at the moment, particularly through Adelaide Airport and SA Water, that talk about the heat sink. So if we can get green environments that are well irrigated, what they're saying at this particular point in time is the actual ambient temperature of the region decreases. We're at a scheme size that's exceeding what most people thought would be the case. We're still working with the properties of the aquifer to determine exactly how large we can make this scheme, but the scheme in itself, with the unique nature of the design, we still haven't exceeded the cost thresholds. And in the end, the project went in with minimal complaints through the eastern suburbs of Adelaide, which is an aspect we are extremely happy with.
There was an awful lot of naysayers, people who believed that we weren't going to be able to get it off the ground. We proved them all absolutely wrong.
The journey that Guida O'Connor and WGA have been on over the last 10 years has allowed Nathan and his team to commence exporting the knowledge that we have learnt. It is now being used both overseas and interstate, and truly a success for South Australia and the two teams involved.